Blessings and happy Tuesday evening to you. Give me a second here, YouTube, while I go on and start recording for the Podbean. Listen, because this is truly a podcast that we do. Hallelujah. And we are definitely wanting to make sure, I'm hoping that it's on, okay, wanting to make sure that we are doing the Podbean as well. So welcome to episode 3 of Put Me on Speaker. I am First Lady Venus, and this is the podcast, a platform that I have started just a couple of weeks ago. And I want to come to you tonight in the sort of a counselor mode because I am a certified and degree counselor. And so what we're talking about on tonight, will be counselor related, relationship related. Okay, so episode 3 of Put Me on Speaker is what do you do when you realize that you can't change them? What do you do when you realize that you can't change them? Well, listen, I want to apologize for not being on the past 2 weeks for those that are coming to watch, those that are catching this by the replay, but I was traveling for the past 2 weeks, 1 week in California, and then last week in Chicago. So, but hey, we're back on tonight. What do you do when you cannot change them? Now, let me give a scenario to start this out. Let me give a scenario on what exactly we're talking about. And there can be several different parameters with this. What to do when you can't change them as far as relationship mode, as far as people, it could be siblings, spouse, it could be in the workplace, but I want to talk about relationships on tonight. And so in relationships, I want to give a scenario of boy meets girl, okay? Girl meets boy, and they get together and they get married, and things are just going well for a little while, and then things are not going well. Why? Because the honeymoon part is over, and because they no longer have to try to impress you, they have you. So what do you do when you realize that you can't change someone? So here's the thing that you have to do. You have to be able to stop. If you're not going to seek counseling, because a counselor will help and guide you through these steps, but I'm going to give you some steps on tonight where you don't have to go and pay a counselor. You don't have to try to figure out, hey, how to do this. I'm going to give you some steps on how to do it, okay? What you want to do, first of all, is come to the realization that something has to change. Okay, something has to change. I'm not able to change this person into what I think they should be. I'm not able to even get them to conform or to change to the person that they pretended to be. Now, what do I do? Well, we asked the question in the beginning of this, what do you do when you can't change them? You change the narrative. So what is a narrative? Let's break that down. What is a narrative? I'm going to give you the definition of narrative. Narrative is a spoken or written account of connected events. It's a story. So your life is a story, okay? You're a character in it. This significant other is a character in it, and your life is the story. Now, as it may be, as it is now, considering what we are discussing, they've been writing the story. Why do I say that? Because when you spend your time trying to change someone, trying to make them be what you want them to be, they've got the ball and they're running with it. They're doing what they want to do. They are writing the story, okay? Because the story is not looking like what you wanted it to look like. The story is not coming out as you wanted it to come out. Listen, so most women have a fairy tale in their idea of what a relationship would be like. They have a fairy tale in their minds about what marriage and this relationship, this courtship, this engagement, it's just going to be so lovely. And I love him and he loves me. And we're going to do this together. We're going to do this. And then, and we've got these dreams. Okay. We've already talked about what we want and all of these things. And then you find out that one, they lied because they're not trying to do any of that. Two, they don't even want to try to do any of that. And even if they were doing it before, even if they did not lie, now that they're with you for whatever reason, they don't want to condone or be the person that they said they would be in this relationship. So then what do you do with that? You actually change the whole complete narrative. So where they have been the ones that were writing the story, where they are the ones that's got the ball and running with it, you've got to put the ball in your court. And I actually did a little video, a preview of this podcast where I said that, what do you do when you can't change them? You change the narrative. The ball is in your court. Now, you can spend years and years and years trying to change someone to be what you want them to be. You can spend years in that, and I can tell you what will happen with that. You're going to be in bitterness. You're going to be angry. A lot of times, especially with women, we have things that go on in our bodies because we are trying to fix someone that you can't fix. Listen, you cannot fix a person. What you can do is ask them to go to the fixer, listen, to God, to find out what's wrong, or a counselor or a therapist. Listen, because everybody doesn't know God. Everybody doesn't know Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior. And I don't just counsel Christians. Although I am a Christian counselor, I do not just counsel Christians. So I understand that, listen, if you're not going to go to God, if you're not going to take it to him in prayer, if you're not going to say, okay, I don't know how to be the person that my spouses need me to be, then you go to a professional that can help you do that. Well, if they're not going to do that, if they're not going to make the story be how you want it to be, then you've got to change the narrative. You've got to change, listen, the story, and you can still have that fairy tale life that you wanted. Listen, there is nothing wrong with it. It's an old conception or perception that women have of living the fairy tale life. It's nothing new. I mean, you can go back years and we're talking about 1800s and 1700s or way back. Women want the fairy tale. We do. We want the fairy tale, and you can have the fairy tale. You really can have the fairy tale. When both people come together and do the work, life can be very glamorous. Life can be very peaceful. Life can be where you living in that whirlwind of happiness. But it takes the two people becoming one, but they have to be two whole people. I'm going to back that up and say that again. When two people come together, the Bible talks about, so the two shall become one. And we understand that that means in marriage, when two people become one, you got to have two wholes. You can't have a half a person or a third of a person to come together to make a whole. That just will not work. So you've got to make sure that you are whole, they are whole, and then you're coming together to make this the fairy tale of life or of existence that you want. As a Christian counselor, as someone who's married to a pastor, we've done actually marriage counseling. And that is something that I suggest that everyone do. You should never marry anyone without going through marriage counseling, because people can tell you anything. They will say whatever they want to say. And that's on both sides of the coins. Not just men, but women can pretend too. They know what their man wants. He said what he wanted. You heard him say what he wanted in a spouse. So you can pretend to be that even when your heart is far from it. He could say, I want a woman that's going to cook. I want a woman that's going to clean. I want a woman that's not going to work. I want this and I want that. And because you want him for whatever your reasons, you want the fairy tale, you lie and say that's what you want, when in actuality, you know you don't want to cook and clean like that. You know that you'd rather have a maid. You know that you don't really want to have children, but you said that because you thought that you would be able to change them. You thought that when they got with you, you could change their minds about what they want. And that's just not how it works. People want what they want. At the heart and the core of who I am, what I want matters to me. And so what you're saying to me, listen, catch this nugget. What the person is saying to you is, I don't respect what you want. You're not important. What you say and what you want doesn't matter. That's exactly what they are saying when they lie to you, pretend to be somebody that they're not, and then want to be in this relationship and want you to just turn and flip over exactly what you want. And here lies the problem that many people find themselves in, is that now you're with this person and you're trying to figure out, how do I get them to change? Well, you don't. They have to decide, only I can only change me. You can't change me. What you can do is make me mad. What you can do is make me perturbed. What you can do is annoy me to try to get me to do something that I don't want to do. See, when you're dealing with grown people, you've got to let them make the decision to change. And if they're not willing to do the work, and this is the whole foundation of this podcast on today. I don't know who I'm speaking to, but I know when I get these putting me on speaker, that is for somebody. You are in a relationship where you're trying to change the person, and God is saying, change the narrative. You wanted it this way. You see that it's not this way. So then what do you have to do to change the story? Well, I'm married now. I don't believe in divorce. I even, people will say the scripture where God has put together, let no man put asunder, who God has put together. I don't believe in divorce. I would say this. I don't condone just, I don't want to be married anymore. We're just going to divorce. This is not working out. I don't condone that. But I will say this. Everybody that's married shouldn't be. And even though you stood before the preacher and you stood in the church and you said these vows in front of everybody, that was you doing that. And just because somebody prayed over you don't mean that it was of God. So there are a lot of people that are married that just should not be. And so what do you do with that? You change the narrative. Okay, you change the story. You get wisdom. Come on, the Bible talks about that the counsel of wisdom and getting in in a number of counsels, being able to receive counsel. The Bible speaks of that there's wisdom in the midst of many counselors. So a lot of times you've got to talk to one person, two people, three people. Listen, go to a number of people to get their perspective, get their prayer, get their insight, to find out what you need to do. Okay. So these are things to consider. Number one, red flags. You missed them. Okay. You saw them. You missed them. You saw them. You ignored them. So consider that. Go back in your mind and be like, you know what? I saw that. You know what? If I had have paid attention to that, then maybe I wouldn't be in this situation. So consider, they are always red flags. Always red flags. Number two, you're not their parent. Somebody had a song. I can't remember. I remember hearing it. I don't know who sung it, but it goes something like this: you can't change a man. If his mama didn't raise him, what are you gonna do? Something like that. You all may know what that is, but and I think that might have been the name of the song. You can't raise a man. You can't raise him. You can't make a boy be a man. If his mother did not raise him, if his parents didn't raise him to be a man, what are you going to do as the spouse? What are you going to do as the girlfriend? What are you going to do as the person that's engaged to them? You're not their parent. So they don't want you in their ear always fussing. Please get that. They don't want to hear you. You're not their parent. And it's not your job as a significant other to fuss. to be that clanging cymbal in their ear. And the Bible talks about that. It's better to live on a rooftop in the corner than to live in a 10,000 square foot house with a woman that is cantankerous, that's always in your ear, that's always griping, that's always got something to say. Men don't want to hear that. And a big way to turn them off and to be assured that they are not listening to you is to be a nagger. You're not their parent. You don't have the right to nag them. You don't have the right to be in their ear always fussing, fussing, fussing. They grown. And you don't fuss and grown people. You're not their parent. Number 3, you can't counsel them. I am a counselor. I've got the degrees. I've got the certifications. I could counsel my husband, but I won't, because I can't counsel him. I'm in a relationship with him. I'm not his counselor. I can tell him he needs to seek counseling, but I can't try to counsel him. So just because you got the knowledge of how this relationship should go, just because you may be a marriage counselor with all kind of certification and degrees, and they may know you in the city and town that you're in, it doesn't matter. It doesn't pertain to your husband. You can use that knowledge to try to do what you need to do on your end, but you can't counsel them because you're in a relationship with them and it's biased. Okay, it's biased, which is why I can't counsel my children. I don't want to counsel the people usually that they're in a relationship with, but I found myself doing that for years now, is counseling the women that my sons are in relationship with, because I'm their mother and they want to talk to me, and because I'm a counselor, I do the best I can to be unbiased, but it's hard to do. Even when they're wrong, it's hard to do because that's my child. And so that's why you can't counsel someone that's that close to you. Okay, so you have to make sure that they get the counseling that they need. Now, what you need to do after all of this that I have said on tonight, and with everything, the scenarios that I've given, you've got to consider completion. I'm going to say that again. You've got to consider completion. What am I saying? When we write stories, and I'm an author, I've been loving to write little stories since I was a child. So when we write a story, what we do is, what you want to do is have the end in mind. Okay, and we see this even in movies. If you have ever listened to the directors or the people even in plays and movies, what they do is they will go and they will film the end first, and then back all the way up and put the parts together to the beginning, and then you've got the whole complete movie or play. Well, it's the same thing with writing a book. You want to consider where you want to be. You want to consider completion. So I'm going to write out, because a narrative, let's go back to the definition, is a spoken or written account of connected events, a story. So written, I'm going to go and write out what I want, how I want my relationship to look, how I want my life to look, what I want, what my desires are. Okay, what are my to-dos, my not to-dos, okay, what I will deal with, and what are my non-negotiables. Okay, this is non-negotiable. I've got to have this. Write that down, because then when you see what you really want, when you know where you want to be, and you see that this person is not going to be able to go that way with you, it's easier for you to rewrite the story. So consider completion. Write down where you want to be, how you want to retire. If travel is something that you wanted to be doing, write that down. Write down what you want, what's important to you, not just what you think they want or what's important to them. You need to write it backwards, okay? Go to the end of the thing and write it that way. And then you will be able to pick up the pieces that that puzzle that's all scattered now. You'll be able to start putting those pieces together to do what you need to do to have the life that you want. So what do you do when you can't change them? You change the narrative. You get the necessary help, okay, that you need. Seek counseling. Seek counseling. Seek counseling. There's safety in a multitude of counselors. Seek godly counsel. Seek wisdom from people that could help you in a relationship. Seek counseling first for you. Now, if the spouse, if your significant other is willing to do the work with you, then seek marriage counseling, get couples counseling. And if they're not willing to do the work with you, ding, 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 bells are going off and flags are waving all around, okay? Bells, big bells, big bells are going off and red flags, they don't want it. What do you do when you can't change them, when you can't make them want it? You change the narrative. So then, okay, so this story is going to be this is going to be a solo story at this point. So now I've got to make the necessary adjustments for one. Mm-hmm. And can I tell you this, that if a man really wants you and he really wants to do the work, once he sees you doing the work to get yourself together, you're stop nagging, you're not bothering him, you're going to counseling, you're reading the self-help books, you're journaling. Oh, he's watching. You don't have to do nothing. You don't have to try to lead stuff. Just live your life accordingly. Do the work. He will see it. And if he wants to line up and be a part of this fairy tale life that you want, this storyline that you have up here, then he'll start to do the work too. But if he does not want to do the work, he'll watch you do all that and be like, good, I hope she hurry up and leave. Do the work, do whatever you got to do whatever a lot of times they just waiting on you to make the move. Some men are just that stand-up guy that they're just not gonna leave you. But what they're doing is trying to get you to leave them. But I understand that it's not that easy. You've got to have a plan. A lot of times it's about the financials, but most of the time it's about the heart. You've got to prepare yourself to walk away. You've got to prepare yourself to rewrite the narrative. And that can take time. That will take prayer. That will take instruction. That will take coaching. That will take counseling. Do the work. Do what you need to do because they're doing what they need to do. He's living his fairy tale life. He's got you overdoing whatever it is that he needs you to do for him while he does everything else that he wants to do happily while you're being crushed on the inside. Okay, so put me on speaker. Listen, it's been First Lady Venus. What do you do when you can't change them? You change the narrative. Do not stay in a relationship of quicksand that is depressing you, oppressing you, and causing you harm. It's causing your body harm. That's really messing up your relationships. You can't focus. You can't do the things at work that you want to do. You are just not yourself because you're in a relationship that is draining. You're in a relationship where the other person does not care. Rewrite the story. Change the narrative on today. Okay, this has been First Lady Venus Walker. And of the Savvy Nation, I'm so glad that you are here, because I'm sure you'll be catching this by the replay. I'm glad that you're here, and I pray that you got what you needed out of this, okay? Change the narrative. Think about those red flags. Remember, you're not their parents, so get out of their ear. You can't counsel them, but you can receive counseling for yourself. And coaching. After you've been counseled, you've got to be coached on how to navigate till you can get to this other story that you're rewriting. Okay. All right. Have an amazing evening on this Tuesday as we sign off.